in the Air Force, and she came to our attention. I probably found your Instagram page at C Felipe Fit probably, I would say almost a year ago or something like that. I started seeing these great recipes using Julian Bakery paleo products like our paleo bread and wraps, and she was doing all sorts of amazing things. And what caught my eye is that not only is she paleo, but she's doing primal recipes, which is usually using, organic grass-fed cheese. So she mixes it up a little bit. But not only that, she has lost 70 pounds, and I've been wanting to get her onto our show to talk about her dramatic weight loss and her incredible recipes. They're awesome. I mean, they're some of the best on Instagram, so definitely check them out. But welcome to the show, Calder. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you ended up finding out about paleo kind of primal diet, and what made you start doing all these great recipes.
Sure. So growing up, I started out taller than all of the other kids in school, and not only was I taller, but I was kind of bigger too. A lot of people say that I could, blame certain circumstances early on for what was caused that weight gain. My father passed away when I was 3, but I can't remember that. I can't really say that that's the reason why, so I just don't. All I know is that as long as I can remember, I was pretty much bigger than everybody else. So the summer between freshman and sophomore year of high school, I made a decision. I'm not going to see anybody. I'm just going to take this summer off, and I'm going to work really hard. And so I did phase 1 of South Beach, which is really low carb. You're supposed to do it for a couple of weeks. I did it the whole summer. I did multiple cardio sessions a day. And embarrassing, but I started getting a little bit addicted to things like laxatives. But I was the skinniest I'd ever been. I came back to school, everybody was like, "Oh my God, didn't even recognize you."
Right.
So it was, I felt great. And I kind of maintained that throughout the rest of high school because I was preparing for the Air Force Academy, which is where I went to college. And through college, it was a little up and down. There were weight standards you had to meet. Sometimes I met them, sometimes I didn't. And then senior year, right before graduation, I went through my second shoulder surgery and knee surgery in the same month. And then on top of it, because of the surgeries and the lack of mobility, I ended up with multiple blood clots in my lungs. So I was hospitalized for a couple of weeks. They basically told me if I'd gone to bed that night, I wouldn't have made it. So on top of all of that restricted mobility from all those injuries, when you start blood thinners, which I was on for 9 months, you can't have any green vegetables, and
Oh, wow.
your heart rate up too high. So I'm sure I could have managed it better than I did, but I mean, I was stressed, and I gained a lot back. And then my husband and I, my now husband, we were getting ready for our wedding, and we did horrible. I dread these meals. It was like a slice of wheat bread for breakfast with peanut butter, a protein shake for lunch, and broccoli and rice and frozen chicken for dinner every day, no matter what, with high intensity. And we maybe lost 15 pounds max with it.
Wait, what was that called?
It was insanity, and then we just kind of researched the best stuff to eat. And then once we got married, we finished that right before the wedding, so we were kind of oh, we're good to go. And we got married, and I don't even post my wedding pictures because they're a little sad. We were both just really large. My largest weight was about 220, and I'm 5'5",
Oh,
and
wow.
I was
Okay.
23 at the time, and it was sad and embarrassing, newlyweds, super big, and like you mentioned, I'm in the military, so now we have the waist standard, and I wasn't making it, so I just made the decision, hey, South Beach worked before, maybe I should try it again, so I cut out as much carbs as I could, and sugar and dairy, and I was Googling as many recipes as I could find, and every single time I Googled it, paleo recipes would come up. And
We know those really well, huh, He?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's my fault.
So I'd heard of paleo and I knew a couple paleo people, and this is totally my fault because I'm stubborn and but some of the people that were paleo put me off, and instead of researching it, which I should have because I was a biology major, so it's all interesting to me, I just dismissed it right away. So for a couple months, I would be using paleo recipes but refused to admit that that's what I was. And then finally, one day, I came across a couple of articles online that described the science behind it all, and it just clicked, and it made so much sense. And I remember I brought lunch that day, and I threw it away halfway through because I made the decision, it starts now. And my husband followed after he saw, the weight loss. He followed a couple months after, and it's been about 2 years now, and it's awesome.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there are a lot of recipes out there, and Gary talked and I a lot about these recipes. Have you found it difficult that or confusing maybe when you were first starting out that a lot of the recipes include like honey and maple syrup and they're really high in sugar? Have you noticed by adjusting the sugar within the recipes or maybe taking it out or replacing it with stevia, have you noticed getting more results or being able to maintain better by following more of a low-carb, low-sugar paleo approach? Or
Oh, absolutely, especially in the weight loss phase. I will admit, or the larger you are, the easier it is to lose weight, and the lower your body fat percentage gets, it gets so much harder. So you really have to be able to tweak your diet day to day. Every week when I was in my weight loss phase, getting smaller, it would be different, and it was all based around paleo, but I would have to cut out even bananas, simple things like that. I just got to a point where I couldn't have them. And things like maple syrup and honey, I mean, it's nice that we have those options to use them, but those are not a daily thing, and at least in my household. And if my brother can eat 5 Hot Pockets a day and still be shredded, and if that was me, then I would allow honey, as much as we wanted, but it's just not. So we try and keep it to a treat, which is basically what it is. But yeah, I do use stevia. I like to use the liquid form too because it tastes a little bit less abrasive. But a lot of, once you're eating this way for 2 years now, things don't need to be as sweet anymore. I tried a piece of milk chocolate a couple months ago and I had to spit it out because it was just too much.
Yeah. Oh, I see you use quite a bit. We call them kind of like transitional foods. Like, obviously the products we make, they're geared with like real food ingredients, and we're making a product out of it. And they're transitional because it's like you're coming from a mainstream way of eating, and they're helping you stick on the paleo kind of path or a primal path. Have you been able to get great results using our products? Do they help you stay on track?
They do, because when I have cravings for things, I don't have to cheat because now I have options. I feel very fortunate I live in close to Boulder now, so products are in the stores, whereas Albuquerque, people were like, paleo, I've never even heard of that. So yeah, if I want a burrito, I just get a coconut wrap instead of, going and having a flour tortilla and then having a mood swing and a puffy face later.
Yeah, out in Boulder, Colorado, where do you shop? Like Whole Foods or Vitamin Cottage? There's Natural Grocers.
Yeah, Nature's Food Patch is one. It's part of Vitamin Cottage. We've got Sprouts out here, which is really great. I don't have a Whole Foods close to me, but I love Whole Foods as well. And even, strangely enough, even Costco is starting to supply a lot of organic foods too. So.
Yeah, they're definitely trying, and we're in talks with them right now. So you never know.
Yeah. Yeah, I lived in Albuquerque for 7 years, so I know how that is. They'd gotten a Trader Joe's just as I'd left.
Yeah, they have Trader Joe's.
Up in the Northeast Heights area, and that was actually some of the worst shape I was ever in my life. I wrote about it in my book. That was a point when I lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where I decided to make a decision that I needed to get back into it because you're right, it was a very unhealthy area. It was very difficult I looked for healthy foods and you couldn't. There was a bar every 5 feet, but I couldn't find a healthy, place to eat. So, yeah, I understand that. And I know with the Boulder area too, it's weird how regionally it becomes more difficult, and I've lived all over the country as well. And you can live in areas where it's really, really tough to find food. And that's where the transition foods help too, is because you can order. You can order them and have them sent to you. Gives you a little bit of, some regularity in what you're eating if it's just something that you're used to and it's healthy. So yeah, the transition foods I think are very important. With that being said, being a former military guy myself, we talked about this a little bit before we got on, but I was my career started over 20 years ago, and I've noticed the change. I was curious with you, you're still in, that I've noticed that the standards have changed as far as uniform standards and weight standards, because they go hand in hand, because if you were overweight while I was in, it was considered being out of uniform standards, and you could be discharged for that. Mm-hmm. And like I said, people would have to go on, I think it was a 6-week or 8-week program, and if they didn't make it, and they were out without, they would actually be discharged, and they could be dishonorably discharged at that.
Right.
Curious how that has changed and how the military looking at it, because obesity is a nationwide problem.
Right. So I'm not sure about the other branches, but I know for the Air Force, there used to be weight standards and there are not anymore. So basically, they weigh you for the PT test, but it doesn't count towards anything.
Really?
They've moved to a waist measurement, and from what I've heard, the reason behind it is that the size of your abdominal fat can lead to all these other diseases like heart disease and things like that. So that's why they focus on that area. And if you are on a mobility restriction, say you broke your ankle or something, and all you can take is the waist test, then the requirements are actually smaller to pass. And if you don't pass, you get, I think it's like 3 fails and you're up for discharge. And I think it's dishonorable as well, but I'm not sure. But it's definitely scary to fail because I was on that mobility restriction, and so my waist had to be even smaller, and it wasn't.
Yeah, it's interesting because you would think that when you're on mobility restriction that your waist would actually get bigger because you can't move around. So they put more pressure on you to try and stay thin, but you can't move. So it makes a little. Yeah, that's the military. I've been there, but I'm glad they went to the waist indicator, because that is true. They have proven that your waist size determines your health. And me and Heath have heard every argument, every excuse known to man about how you can weigh 400 pounds like Jimmy Moore or whatever and be healthy. And it's totally false. If you have a large waist size, it is proven that you are going to suffer from many more maladies than the normal person who has a smaller waist size. Doesn't mean the person with a smaller waist size is necessarily healthy either, like your brother who can eat 5 Hot Pockets.
Yeah.
How old's your brother?
That's probably pretty young, right?
He's 29.
Oh, yeah.
I think he came out of the womb ripped. But
yeah, you never know. I mean, it can catch up to you definitely, especially in your 30s. I know up until 30, it was really easy. I was really lean, and in my 30s, things started to catch up. I started having more allergies. Some of that, just started putting on weight because your hormones change in your 30s. So it's just you have to start eating better and taking better care of yourself. Have you noticed that, now that you've changed your diet, that you can actually work out less and get better results? Like, probably at one point you were probably having to work out a lot, and then as you probably adjusted your diet, at least I found for myself, I can go, step down from working out 5-6 times a week to maybe 3 times and still maintain. Have you been able to notice that kind of correlation?
Absolutely. And also, I was working out the wrong way back then.